Today was the big day, the big Xbox business update that we've all been waiting for. Over the last week plus, rumours have been doing the rounds, leaks have been circulating. Now we know what's happening, but the question is, was it all a big nothing, or is it true? Is Xbox dying and this is the end? I think what people need to keep in mind, because many people were getting out popcorn. They legitimately perhaps thought that Phil Spencer was going to announce the end of Xbox. It's all changing. They're bowing down to Sony. That was obviously never going to happen. Xbox is still printing money. They may not be making as much, at least in terms of profit, as the PlayStations, the Steams, the Nintendo Switches of the world, but they're still doing reasonably well. They've got tens of millions of Gamepass subscribers. Their titles are selling. They're getting 30% of literally every game that is sold on an Xbox. So I assume they make something similar for microtransaction purchases, things like that. So the idea that Xbox was just going to flush all that, Microsoft was going to flush all that down the toilet and say that's the end, it was never going to be the case. The whole idea where all this started of Xbox Phil porting games to the PS5, the Switch and so on, it's about making more money. It's about making the line go up. It's not as if they were putting up the white flag because they're literally going to go out of business. No, it's about making more, all of the money. So the business update, the podcast, it went for about 20 minutes, and the majority of it was fluff. They were talking about a lot of crap that most people like me don't care about because I mainly play on PC. My interest in this is not, oh no, please Xbox, don't betray me. It's not quite that. It's more Microsoft are a huge game publisher now. They own so many IPs. Heaps of like small ones from 10, 15 years ago you've probably forgotten about because Activision, for instance, don't care about most of their IPs. They just make Call of Duty, but they own a lot of IPs. So for that reason, with Microsoft being such a huge game publisher now, I'm interested to see what direction they're going in. So that's why I kind of follow this. Most of what they talked about, though, was stuff many of us probably don't care about, though. Like, oh, Xbox are making some new hardware. We'll announce that soon. Don't care about that. Generic stuff like when gamers play, we all win, just that sort of PR fluff. But the real key moments was firstly them saying that 4 games were going to be coming to other platforms, which essentially just means PS5 and Switch. These titles are already on Steam, the PC stores, so they basically don't say it out loud, but it means PS5 and the Nintendo Switch. That is all it can really mean. We can see in this tweet, this isn't 100% confirmed, but it pretty much is. I think they've sort of leaked this part out. I know not all the rumours might have been correct, but this seems pretty safe. We can see that Microsoft is bringing 4 games to rival consoles. They're not naming them, but you can expect Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and Grounded. Now, for me personally, I've speculated on what could happen, but they honestly announced more than I thought they would have. Some people out there, mostly Xbox fans, let's be honest, they've tried to say this is a win, that anyone who is a leaker or a spectator is totally wrong, you exaggerated everything, it's only these 4 games. It's still more than I thought. I assumed it would only be Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush. The other ones were kind of a surprise, and this tells me that they're really pushing this. They did say, and they implied at least, I don't know if they said it for sure, that this is an experiment and they'll kind of see what happens from here, but that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if you release a decent game on another platform, it's obviously going to sell copies. This has been going on for decades. What's the experiment? I think it's just another way of saying we're going to release the games. If the backlash isn't severe, if we don't notice that this is going to affect our bottom line sort of too much, people don't just stop buying Xboxes, then we are going to continue. I wouldn't even be surprised if that is just PR spin. Their plans are in motion. Pretty much everything is going to be coming to PS5 and so on, but they just don't want to say it. And that's really the key for this business update, because a lot of people have just looked at this as black and white, where it's like either at the update they announce the end of Xbox or Xbox is saved. It's one or the other. There can't sort of be any in between. And again, they were not just going to come out and say, don't be a moron and buy an Xbox. It's never going to be that. They want to keep sucking people in. They want to bring them into the ecosystem, even if the key sell isn't exclusive games. And reading the between the lines in everything Phil Spencer said, all of his colleagues said as well, the key takeaway for me is they're trying to make the value proposition not exclusive games. It's going to be other things, like maybe day one on Game Pass. They did recommit to that. That was probably my biggest surprise, that they kind of flat out said everything will come day one to Game Pass. Now, I do have a couple of theories there where I think maybe this is pure speculation that they might get away with some wording there, because I think they specifically said Xbox Studio games, and it might be that they sort of reclassify Activision Blizzard as its own thing, and that could be an excuse for why, say, Call of Duty doesn't come to Game Pass day one, because that's all still a little bit funny. They tried to get a win in today, which is announcing Diablo 4 for Game Pass and suggesting that sort of shows you that Activision Blizzard games are coming to Game Pass. But it's literally one game. It's a title that's like 8 or 9 months old now, and it's also a title that they are going to make a lot of money off microtransactions and expansion purchases. So putting it on Game Pass, that's not really a risk. Anyone who was really interested in buying it at full price probably has by now, so there's no risk there. There absolutely is risk putting the brand new Call of Duty on Game Pass day one. So we're yet to see that. That isn't really confirmed, even if they said everything's coming day one to Game Pass. But that's probably their biggest win. If you're an Xbox fan and you heard that, that's what I'd be sort of sticking to. I'd be holding them to that and going into an outrage, as you do if they try and walk that back up and use sort of excuses like, no, Activision Blizzard, Bethesda doesn't count. We're just talking about our crap usual Xbox Studio games like Halo Infinite. But again, if you ignore the PR fluff, it really seems like they're trying to step back from the exclusivity stuff. And that's why I think this is all spin, that pretty much every game going forward that is a brand new release, we'll touch on Starfield in a second, but every brand new release, anything that comes out probably in, say, 2025 onwards, it's just going to come to PS5 day one, maybe Switch 2 if it can run it. It also seems like Phil Spencer and co are expecting PlayStation to kind of do the same, but where it's going to be hard for Xbox is they are in last place in the console race. There's not really that many benefits for Sony to release games on Xbox compared to vice versa. The user base, I think PS5, there's like double of those sold compared to Xboxes. So Sony sort of get the double win there, where they can say, we're keeping our games exclusive, we're not putting them on Xbox, and they get the PR win from that. They can pretend they're on a high horse, but really, the economic reality is there's just not a lot they're going to gain from putting them on Xbox anyway. Whereas, for Phil Spencer, if you put a game on PS5, there's huge benefits, but the fans will absolutely lose their minds and say, this is the reason we're losing and no one's playing with us, no one's buying an Xbox because you're doing all this sort of stuff. So I can kind of empathize with Phil and the team. To be honest, it's fun to laugh at them, but if you think about it sensibly, it's like we just heard yesterday pretty much that the PS5 Sony are having some financial trouble and they might be contemplating day one PC releases for their console exclusives, which hasn't really happened before. So, I mean, if they're struggling, it must be really tough times for Xbox. I mentioned it's not like they're going out of business, they're making money, but they're not growing, and that scares these huge conglomerates when they are not growing. So I can see the challenge for Phil and Co. But the clear thing to me is it's 4 games right now, Hi-Fi Rush and so on, but there are obviously more coming. I see these Xbox fans, they're running around everywhere on Twitter, on gaming forums, and they keep saying, oh, anyone who said anything about these leaks is totally wrong. They need to apologize because it's only 4 games. Well, are you willing to use your brain? Or are you literally only going to take what these executives say to you and take it at face value and that's it? Are you going to think about it, or is that not possible for you? Because if you just want to take the approach that business people are always going to be honest, they're not going to use spin, they're not going to exaggerate, sure, if you want to use that logic, then you shouldn't be worried. But if you do want to be a non-brain dead person, you probably have to think about it a little bit more. They've basically said, and they said this in the update, that they are not growing, that to sustain Game Pass, their business, Xbox, for the next 5, 10, 20 years, they've got to do things differently. And that means that they have to get their games everywhere. As they've said, they made this big thing about Xbox games everywhere. It's a big win. And I can see why they're saying that, because they have to sell more. But the fans, they seem to think there hasn't been a change in strategy, despite these 4 games moving. Obviously, more are going to come. If you don't want to believe that, if you think it's rumors, speculation, you don't want to use your brain, you're probably someone who bought into crypto and NFTs, because those people, they said you'll get rich if you buy them. So by your logic, you've got to believe them, right? Why would they lie to you? No one lies. No one does anything in their own self-interest, surely. And to give a bit of an example of this, there was another tweet here, because the only big moment I haven't really mentioned yet is Phil is asked if out of the 4 games that they are porting right now that they were ready to talk about, are those games out of the 4 Starfield and Indiana Jones? And he said no. But he's done some other interviews, and we can see here in this tweet, so this Tom Warren guy, he seems to be someone slightly in the know. He said that Xbox chief Phil Spencer doesn't rule out Starfield and Indiana Jones coming to PS5. And we can see in the interview here, he's asked, you mentioned that Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't part of the 4 games coming to other consoles despite rumours. But will those ever come to PS5? Can you rule that out? And he answers, I don't think we should as an industry ever rule out a game going to any other platform. We're focused on these 4 games and learning from the experience. What does the learning mean? How much money you make from it, basically. And obviously, Indiana Jones is going to sell more than Pentiment from Obsidian. It's obvious. It's a big name. So, honestly, this to me is the biggest thing. And that wasn't even in the business update. This was somewhere else. You had to go looking for it. If an Xbox fan reads this and does not think Indiana Jones is going to come to the PS5 one day, you were deluded. I cannot help you if you're at that point, because it's just obvious spin. Now, will it come day one? No, and the leaks never said that. They talked about both Starfield and Indiana Jones, they would be ported later. I don't think anyone ever really said it was going to be like they're going to release next week, or in Indiana Jones's case, day one on PS5. That was never happening. And I honestly think with Starfield, the loophole is going to be, well, I mean, 2 things could happen. The first option, which I've thought before, is that they'll release they'll probably try and call it a Game of the Year edition. They'll try and string that together. I think they did it with Fallout 4, even though that was certainly not Game of the Year. It'll be some sort of collection with the DLC, and they'll claim that's like a new release, so they weren't lying when they said Starfield wasn't coming to PS5, because this is a brand new edition, it's totally different. The other side of that coin is they maybe go, you know what, let's just use this as the only PR win. We never put Starfield on the PS5, and we leave it there and sort of say older Xbox games won't be coming to the PlayStation and so on, so we don't betray our fans. But anything newer, like a new Doom, for instance, from id Software, that is pretty obviously going to come to the PS5. The question now is probably the when. Are we going to get that day one release point? I still think we are. I still think that's what Microsoft and the executives are talking about. I think the discussions have never really been, should we put these games on PS5 at all? The arguments have been, should we do it day one or should we wait? And I imagine Phil and his team want to wait, but the executives higher up probably want to get that money day one, because we've seen from Sony's PC releases, they make a bit of money, but I think they leave a lot on the table by delaying the release, because by the time it comes to Steam, it's old, we don't want to pay full price for some 2-3-year-old game, and therefore it sort of slows that down. And that's why Sony are thinking about day one PC releases. They kind of know that. Now, I mentioned there was plenty of cope going on. If we go to the Xbox subreddit, we can see here, let's join together in holding the insiders accountable. Let's all take a long, hard look at the circle of morons that claim to be insiders, journalists, and get text messages from executives. There's surely a lot of lies when it comes to leaks and rumors and things like that, but this person I can just tell is being disingenuous. They're trying to imply that all the rumors were fake and this was a huge nothing, because Xbox basically didn't send the message of doom that Xbox was totally dying, purely because Phil said it's going to be okay, it's 4 games for now, and then he sort of said, oh, well, we can't rule anything out in the future. Supposedly that means everything was fake. From what I understand, looking at the rumors, most of the talk about Starfield and Indiana Jones was for the future. It wasn't for right now. I'm yet to really see too many of the leaks that are actually fake. And what these people should be scared about is the leaks that were actually true. Because a lot of the same people who were saying that Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush was coming to PS5, they were the same people who were talking about Starfield and Indiana Jones. And the first part of that was right. You can go nuts and say that you're right because the people who were eating their popcorn and thinking Xbox was 100% dead, that those people were wrong. But if you actually just look at the leakers, most of them are not incorrect. Most of it seems to be lining up. We maybe just didn't get the entertainment today. A lot of people, they were ready to get entertained. They were ready for the comedy to look like an absolute fool. I mean, the guy, even though I think he's done some incompetent things, he's obviously been in the game a long time. He's not stupid. He's going to come out and try and say the right things. And it seems to have worked. A lot of people who might have been in a panic, they're going, oh, phew, it's okay. I can cuddle my Xbox tonight. It's all going to be fine. But long term, I think things are going to be different. What Xbox really wants is these sorts of people, a comment like this. I've come to realise I've been an Xbox boy since Halo 1, and I don't think I'm going anywhere. Yes, I will probably get the other consoles as well, but I'm with Xbox for the long haul, basically no matter what they do. These are the sorts of fans Xbox wants to cultivate, not people who only buy the console for exclusives. These lifelongers who are just always going to play on Xbox no matter what. They're going to buy the third-party games there, which means Microsoft gets a cut. And that's what it really is about for them. The issue both Xbox and Sony have is basically they probably lose a lot of the money from that 30% they're making from every game sold because of these insane budgets they're having to put in their exclusives. So the idea that the sole selling point of consoles is exclusives, it's probably not sustainable because they feel like they've got to put in 200, 300 million to make a game like, say, Spider-Man 2 for the PS5, and then they just lose out on a lot of their profits. So they're probably trying to change the narrative here. I mean, I think it's fine. Like, this sort of person, I mean, I can laugh at them, but if we're totally honest with ourselves, if we're on PC, we probably feel similar about Steam. Unless things went really, really badly wrong, most of us will probably make excuses for Steam because we're kind of biased. Our libraries are there. We don't want to move away unless we absolutely have to. So the way I kind of see this is the leaks have all probably been right, but it's going to be a slow crawl to get to that point where absolutely everything is going to all platforms in Xbox's case. I still think it's going to happen. We're probably not going to get news on this for months and months until we get closer to like an Indiana Jones and we hear some murmurs. I think Xbox will definitely be quiet about it for now. A lot of damage was done to their brand. All of the rhetoric going on online, they were probably quite worried. So I think they'll be quiet on this for some time. But again, this isn't just an Xbox thing. We're seeing it with Sony. They're looking at day one on PC. Things are going to change in the landscape. The very short of it is going to be that these consoles, they don't want it to be about exclusive games anymore. They don't think they can sustain it. They're probably going to try other things to bring value to the consoles, which I think is okay, to be honest, because that's probably going to be better for PC gaming. If they're sort of saying, hey, there's no exclusives on the console, but you can use it as a handheld like you can the Nintendo Switch, that's fine. I'm happy with my Nintendo Switch because it's nice. I can use it in bed when I'm traveling, unlike the PC, which isn't as convenient. Sure, you've got the Steam Deck option and things, but at least the Nintendo Switch has some benefits compared to like a PS5 that would literally sit in my corner if I owned one, aside from playing the odd game like I did for Bloodborne on PS4, for instance. So I just prefer everything is coming to PC. Hopefully this is a win for gamers in the long term, but I'm still kind of frightened of Microsoft because of their push for like cloud gaming. I don't want a world where they lock everything behind Gamepass and you can't even buy it unless you're a subscription person. That would absolutely suck. So I'd be quite cautious with this. The leaks were probably true. Long term, we'll see if this is a benefit for PC gamers and maybe everyone else. It'll probably be a while until we get more news on it, and now we can move on to probably what will be the next drama. I wonder what else is going to happen, but thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, bye.